Let's talk about efficient engineering when a plan becomes EPLAN. I'm Roland Young from EPLAN Canada, and today I'm going to talk about terminals. You know terminals, right? Terminals, not these kind of terminals, these kind of terminals. Terminals. Terminal blocks that come in various shapes, various ways, with two connection points, sometimes with multiple levels, sometimes with 1, 2, 3 connection points, sometimes like here with 4 connection points. I'm going to show you a little bit about terminals and wiring diagram. So coming back to EPLAN, of course, the idea is you have a terminal strip, TB24, has terminals with level, no level, and there's a terminal device position that specifies where that specific terminal is within the terminal strip itself, and there's a part number. Good. So this enables us one day to just drag and drop, say yes, and go one terminal strip at a time and place those terminal strips one side by side. Now, of course, it's the simplified here 3D view, as you can see. And when we talk about terminals, we often talk about also some special accessories. We talk about jumpers. We talk about different types of terminals, 4 connection, 2 connection, TE, when they're green, yellow like this. Some separating plates. In this case, it's not sorted in the right way. These should be at the end here. So there's a sorting aspect about this whole thing. But to start with, we have to go deeper and check out the schematics. So when you check out schematics, of course, every time you have a terminal, you place a terminal, and that terminal gets a terminal part number, a terminal strip designation, and of course a designation to designate the label that you're going to put on there, and eventually a 2-level. So let's start with the basics. So when you start, let's say we start, very often when you start using terminals, it's because you have something like this here, which is a power unit and a power supply, and you are distributing this power in the rest of the schematics. Okay, so on one side you will have here some 24 volts, and on the other side, let's keep it simple, you will have some common, right, that will go out there. Now, placing a terminal, the simplest representation is here a terminal with simply something like this, a round circle with 2 connection points, in and out. We can go more precise, as you can see, but this one is in and out. Usually when I place it, I will ask myself, okay, do I place it like this or do I place it like this? The question, of course, here is that small tail that you see, which is connection pin number 1, should always show you the inside of the panel. So the inside, of course, my power supply is in the inside, and here by default TB1 designation 1, and it picks up here the mounting location from the page, which is allocated to the panel plus P. Now, if you want to assign this to a different mounting location, if your structure allows it, you can say this is going to be part of my panel A1. Now, what you could also do is, of course, go in here and say all my pages are actually designated to represent the mounting location A1, and then generally speaking, every time you draw something on this page, now it's allocated to A1. Perfect. So far, so good. This is one terminal, and as you can see, that terminal is all by itself. If we open the navigator and we slowly grow into it, you will see that we have in A1, we have a TB1 that has already some terminals. Let's call it TB, for the sake of the example, TB10. Okay, so you can see here now we have a new terminal strip and we have one terminal, and that's it. Here, that terminal, you can assign a part number. You have different ways to assign part number. So you can use the direct selection, but then you have to go and find the part number and assign it. I could do so. If you happen to know the part number, you can say this is a 3209578. Let's do a filter, and we'll actually find a part number that corresponds to that number. In this case here, it's a feed-through terminal block. More specifically, it's a quattro. It has actually 4 possible wires that can be connected. So when you look here through the function template, you will see it's a terminal with saddle jumper, 4 connection points, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you do assign this part number to this terminal, then this definition here automatically pops up to match the part number. Right now, there is no terminal device position because it's sitting there by itself, and I have never opened the next dialog, which is here nothing else than the edit dialog, edit terminal dialog, where we will be looking at a terminal strip, but a little bit more complex, like here, where you look at the different terminals, you look at jumpers, you look at how they are attached, how many terminals or how many targets are actually on the inside, on the outside, etc. Okay, so here what I intend to do is I'm going to use that same terminal. I'm going to use it for X number of times. So I'm going to take this, duplicate it 4 or 5 times, okay, or whatever. And of course, if I do so 4 or 5 times, boom, you can see that EPLAN will automatically number it. You can see it here, and they are now, if you go to the edit menu again, you will see 5 of these terminals. Okay, so far so good, all with part numbers. Now, if you duplicate this, if you go about and you just drag and drop this over like this here, and maybe just a little bit further down, we number again. This is a new terminal strip called TB25, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is an entirely new terminal strip here that was generated for this site. If you want them to be exactly on the same terminal strip, you just have to do it at the very top here, terminal number 10, and bingo, now you have these terminals all matching up, but you have a small problem because of the way it was numbered, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have now twice the number 1. So technically, if you open this here in the edit menu, you will see it's a little bit screwed up. So the best thing is probably to renumber this. And this is a nice feature we have here because you can renumber the selection, say like sorting, very important, and you can start and increment the value, number all types of terminals, and now you have like sequential numbers that make sense. And now you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. So far, so good. Now, if I actually dig into one of these terminals, you will see that that terminal also got a device terminal position here, okay? So it may be that it matches because I have exactly 10 terminals, so the device position 3 is also the one part of 3. Now, comes the next thing. When you buy terminals, you can also connect them together. And one common thing we do is we connect them together like this with what we call jumpers, okay? Now, these jumpers, if I have them connected together, this will generate a jumper. Well, let's take a look. Can it actually do a jumper? No, it cannot, because there's this terminal number 3 in between. If I use either here sort by jumpers, or I would basically move these terminals manually in such a way that the terminal number 2 is next to 4. It could be the other way around too. I could actually move the terminal number 2 down like this, right? So now 2 and 4 from a position perspective are side by side. They are side by side, we can have a jumper. Of course, now if I click OK and I look at number 2, its device position will be device position number 3. The number 3 here actually moved into position number 2. So technically, if you want a perfect match between what you see in terms of sorting and numbering, it's always a good thing to just go here, right mouse click, number, and you select again the sorting. So now it's all nice and dandy. We have here those. Same thing if I take these 2 jumpers and I actually move them down to this one here. You will see I could do the same thing on the other side. So technically I could say here I have eventually a circuit breaker, insert a circuit breaker. I'm not going to put a part number right away, or a fuse, doesn't really matter which one I want to pick. Let's say we have a first circuit breaker here, and then the other ones are jumper together, and I have a second circuit breaker. So if you want to say that this one is jumper to this one and this one is jumper to there, what you will typically do is you will do something like this, put a T node. This T node, if you put it carefully in the right direction, so pointing to that side, so this means there's a connection going out there. I can now connect these two together and I could continue, okay? I could, of course, also finish this up here if I wanted to. That's all possible. I'm going to do the same thing down here, and this one here, of course, is open. This one closes up. Let's take a look at what the edit menu at this time shows you, and you will see that the terminal strip edit menu here will have all kinds of connections as you show them in the schematics, but not necessarily user-friendly for a jumper. Why? Because the way they are positioned, 1 is connected to 2, that's fine, but then it jumps to 5, 7 jumps to 9. On this side here, you have an 8 jumping to 10. So this is a little bit screwed in terms of device positioning or sorting. You can now go in here and say, okay, let's sort all this by jumpers. So it actually puts these ones together, these ones together, these ones together. Technically, if we renumber it, we will actually see how EPLAN organized the sorting criteria. It did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is it by itself, 9 and 10, okay? Now, you could also, if you don't want to use this kind of terminal, we have a small variant that might be interesting. The variant that we have here is a different representation in terms of symbol. There is a symbol that is represented here among these 4 connection symbols in particular. We can see it's this one here or this one here. Quite interesting, because if I actually use, let's say, this one here, let's make it variant D, like this, okay? What's going to be nice is I can actually connect to that terminal like once, like this, you connect in, and then if you take all these terminals here, let's just go and do the same type of terminal. So basically I'm going to go here with the 4 connection point terminal. I'm going to pick this one, but just make sure that I pick the right variant because I want this to point to the right. There we go. Take these away. Now EPLAN will actually manage this as a jumper connection. Again, if those are placed next to each other. You can see here I have to sort by jumpers, sorts it out. We number it here again, and you get the perfect numbering for the terminals. So far, so good. Now, this is actually shown as a very detailed one-page representation. In real life, this may or may not be necessarily the way that you see it. What could happen is that you may come out from this power supply here. You connect these. These are actually not used here, right? These are actually used somewhere else. They are used on a separate page. So this common that you see here is also not used here, but it's used on a different page. And you throw out from here and you say, okay, this is going to be my 24V1, just name it something, and 24V2, that's my second circuit breaker, okay? And you will be feeding these into different areas. Now on this side here, the same idea could actually apply where you say, okay, this is going to be my -24 or common or whatever you may name it, right? This is my common. Okay, so far so good. Let's go to a different page, to an input page. Typical input page like this, where you have a couple of input objects or signals. What you would typically have here are some devices or contacts that are within your panel. So it could be like a push button selector switch on the front door, right? You may have like 2 or 3 of them like this, one here, one here. And because of the way that you sort your inputs and outputs, you may have the next one down here. Doesn't really matter. These are actually items that are on the door. Then you have other signals that actually are out in the field. So technically what happens is that you may have 2 limit switches or proximity switch, any kind of signal, but these signals that are here, I'm just going to change very quickly their designation because I don't like them to be LS, PB, I prefer them LS. So this one is LS, And what I'm going to do also is I will specifically say that this is out in the field. So I'm going to use here the mounting location to just redirect them. And this is outside of the panel. So here, mounting location F, and we know this is out in the field. Now we have to think about the terminals. When we insert a terminal, you can also insert a terminal like this, where you say, okay, I happen to know the part number that I want to use. It's a 3209578, which is the same terminal I was using just earlier, which is that quattro, right? And this terminal block, when I place it here, now it comes up with a certain symbol because of that 4 connection quattro, but you can change it. Hit the backspace, and when you hit backspace, you can say, I'm going to look for a different symbol. I might be looking just for that regular symbol we had earlier, like this one here. And when I place it, I just place it according to inside, outside. So technically, the question is, where do you want the PLC to show up? On the inside terminal or on the outside terminal connection point? So let's say this is the one. When you place the first one here, what you are really doing is you are pointing this to an existing terminal strip. So our previous terminal strip was named, I don't know, TB 10, was it like that? Or what was our name that we kept on this side here? Well, yeah, TB10, and we only have 3 terminals left, right? Not more. I was a little bit surprised about the number we had, but this was okay. So we had basically here TB10. You can choose the next one or not. The number here, the designation does not really is not really that important. What's maybe more important is now if I have a few of those, I'm going to copy and paste them. So I can take this copy, Control C, or I can also duplicate, and I can just go here, say I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, and here are my terminals. I just added to my TB 10 more terminals. That is actually fine. Let's see, this is, I'm surprised about the about this distributed terminal because I really didn't want a distributed terminal. And what I'm a little bit surprised also is how this is actually seen from a part perspective, because really this is the part that I want, and I want to be sure that these are a perfect match. This is what I wanted. Now let's concentrate on that 24 volt here. Now I may have created a 24 V1 specifically for the door. So when you look here, I say, okay, I'm going to bring in the 24 V1 onto all the elements that are on the door. So I basically have the door here, I have the door here, and of course, when you're looking at this T node, you are specifying that this is a daisy chain, okay? This is all cool. Now, for the field elements, I prefer actually using the second breaker. So that is my 24 V2. So far, so good. You are actually protecting the field devices separately from the regular terminals. Now what you want to do is insert a terminal. So we're going to use, again, a device, same device that we have here, and we're going to choose here this terminal, and we'll just place it here like this, right there. And when we do place it, we of course specify that this belongs to the terminal TB10, and it's going to be the next one like this, right? So that part number that we have here is going to be assigned to that terminal. Now we can think about this. Well, since this has really 4 connections, and I'm hooking up here, the question, of course, is when will I need a new one? So I'm going to check this out here, and is it really a new one every time I have a push button? No, not really, right? So you only, if you want all push buttons to go back up to here, all you have to do on this one here, if you want to, you can just rotate the T node and they will here go back to the top and go back inside this terminal. And when you check out this terminal here, you will see in the connections, on one side it has one connection point, on the other side here it will have a few more connections. Sometimes you have to run here the update connections, and you got it perfectly with all the terminals, 1, 2, 3 connections. And that's going to work perfectly. So you need another terminal now here, and you actually do the same thing again, is basically this T node. So instead of having the T nodes not necessarily telling you what it is, take off the dot, and now this goes in here, and this is one of these, because I can go up to 4 connection points, and the others are jumpers. Another interesting thing about EPLAN is jumpers, when they are actually recognized inside your project. So here, this is the project I'm actually working on. You can go on the symbol graphics and you can put the saddle jumper a little bit thicker and even of a different color. So I'm usually using a gray color here. And when I do so, what happens is that when there's a jumper that is actually created, and you will see this on the previous page here, you will see we don't have any jumpers at the moment, so nothing really happens at the moment. So let's organize or reorganize our terminal strip edit here, and let's organize and sort this by jumpers. A little bit like we said earlier, right? Sort by jumpers, or in this case, let's just split this guy, sort by jumpers. And you will see we have these organized like this. I'm going to number the terminals again, so we can actually see it in the schematics, but 1 goes to 2 and 5 goes to 6. And you will actually see this inside the drawing. You can see here gray lines a little bit thicker because 1 is jumper to 2. Now these are wires. Here there's a jumper that comes into here, so I'm still left with a couple of wires. Now at the end of the day, when you're finished, you can generate a terminal diagram, which is a very regular report that actually will show you how these terminals are actually aligned and connected, and will also tell you the right amount of terminals. Now the only thing I haven't shown you yet is how we add to a terminal here when we're in the edit menu, how you can add alignable accessories. Alignable accessories are actually accessories like an end cover or a clip fix that actually goes right at the end of each of those terminal strips. If you don't put it right away, it still works. And the next step, when you come to place this on a panel layout, you will get exactly the right number of terminals based on what you did in the drawings. So it is important in your drawings to think a little bit about how the wiring is done, and you just replica this. In a different video, what I'm going to show you is maybe how to use these terminals in a different way. We call it a distributed terminal. So technically, when we look at this terminal here, the TB10, right? The TB10 is actually starting here, and it's continuing on the other side. So you can see all the connections in and out when we have multiple connections, and it actually shows you in different ways. I can also massage this report depending on what terminal diagram you want to show. You can also control the terminal diagram by using the so-called terminal strip definition. The terminal strip definition, what it will do is it will basically specify what the report is you should be using when you generate the report. So technically, you can assign whatever you want here in your templates. So here I may have assigned a specific one. It does not matter. When you generate this, this will actually generate a different one for that particular terminal strip. So here you can see TB1 is done. That's all nice. If you go to the next one, this is TB10. This is a different report. And again, if I zoom in, I can see on my terminals, if I have 1 or 2, in this case I have 2 wires, as you saw it earlier. On this one, we have 3 positions that are actually used up. then we jumper over and we have another limit switch here. So it's all very precise in showing you the exact wiring information. So we can show you the wiring information also graphically if that is easier for the electrician. So here's an example where I took the same type of terminal. These are 2-level terminals, and I'm showing you exactly what's connected. We are very, very flexible on how we display this and how precise we are, whether we actually show a picture of the diagram or not. This is all possible. Okay, so 1-level, 2-level, everything can be displayed. But it all comes down to ask yourself, what you see is what you get. So if there's anything here that you don't like the connection, whatever, go back to the schematics. The origin of whatever you see comes from here. So learn how to use those T nodes, learn to use them properly, understand that EPLAN is capable of understanding whether a wire is a saddle jumper if and only if that terminal is set next to another terminal, like 1 is connected to 2, saddle jumper, 5 connected to 6, saddle jumper, it will work. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. This was very specific to terminals, wiring diagram, and making sure that you get the right number of terminals before you come and place these terminals into your panel layout. Thank you. This was Roland from EPLAN talking about terminals, and of course, coming back to why efficient engineering is when the plan becomes EPLAN. Roland Jung from EPLAN Canada.